Hey everyone, my name is Sean and happy 2020 to you all near and far, and today we're going to be looking at the top 5 best decks of 2019, considering what maybe is worth investing into 2020 and also what made the biggest impact last year. So at number 5, I'm going to go off and already be a little bit cheeky here, and I'm going to go with Stun. Variants of Stun decks, Stun control decks, whether it comes under the heading of True Dracos, Altergeist, Subterrors, maybe even things like Paleo Frogs. Stun decks have always been a threat throughout this whole entire year, and I think you've really got to kind of show a bit of respect to them. The reason why 2019 was one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh formats to have ever existed is because the format was incredibly diverse, and it felt that no matter what deck you kind of chose to go with to a tournament, whether it is Stun or one of the decks that come later on the list, you felt like you had a deck which was more powerful enough to kind of deal with many situations. And in some sense, these decks are very, very good. They're very, very powerful, and it's usually just because the following decks on this list have a way of answering what these decks like to do in a way which cannot be easily countered. That's why these decks do not tend to win as much as possible, but that isn't to say you can't win with these decks. These decks are very, very good. I particularly am a big fan of True Dracos, but I also love Altergeist, and I think these decks are really, really solid. And if you are looking for a really safe option to kind of invest into going into Master Rule 4.5 or before the January 2020 ban list, I would definitely recommend picking up one of these decks, because it's very unlikely these decks are going to be hit, but yet these decks have already proven, have a really proven track record as being good enough to kind of compete with the best of the best out there. So number 5 is going to definitely be Stun. So deck number 4 on this list is definitely going to go to Thunder Dragon. I hate Thunder Dragons, but also have to respect Thunder Dragons, and namely we have to respect Thunder King Ryo 2.0 in the form of Thunder Dragon Colossus. Colossus's effect really kind of created a benchmark for the format once it started to become really, really popular with this deck. This deck was very expensive when it was first released at the end of last year, but as it became more and more affordable and more people got their hands into it, it really became down to you had to try and play decks which could just answer Colossus very easily or just didn't care about them. And all the other decks on this list you're going to see are decks which honestly can do either both. They can either deal with Thunder Colossus quite easily, or they just don't care about its effect. If you don't know much about Thunder Colossus, Colossus has the effect where it stops your opponent from adding cards from their deck to their hand, and that means a lot of engines cannot function while Colossus is on board. Things like True Dracos love to search and add to hand. Things like Altergeist and Menacing love to add to hand. Subterrors constantly like to add to hand. They are just decks which really, really find it hard to kind of deal with this card, and when the card hits the board, it takes a lot of resources for them to get rid of it, and then the opponent could just bring out 2 or 3 more and recycle them and bring them out more. Colossus in particular is such an oppressive card, but the deck as a whole is just very good and very quick at putting out big and strong beaters which can just go for game very quickly. I also want to give my hat off to the combo variant of Thunder Dragons, because I think this was probably the scariest version of this deck to have existed this year. The combo variant of Thunder Dragon was able to put out ridiculous boards of monsters such as Crystal Wing or Hot Red Archfiend, Hawk Harbinger to negate spells and traps, Legionnaire to kind of rip cards at your hands, Diabolos to stop target effects. It was a really, really oppressive deck to deal with, and I'm so glad that deck doesn't exist anymore, or kind of does exist but it's easier to deal with. But Thunder Dragons, yeah, definitely are worth number 4 on this list. Definitely a very, very good deck currently, and going forward I think they're even going to get even better, particularly with the new Master Rule update coming into play in April. Number 3 is going to go to Salaman Great. Definitely think, or Salamandem as we like to say out here, definitely think this deck deserves to go on the list for many reasons. I want to say that if you're trying to get into Yu-Gi-Oh in real life, it's not necessarily the easiest game or the cheapest game to get into. I see so many people make so many mistakes when they're trying to build up their collection, and they invest their money into cards which actually don't give out good long-term returns. And that is because a lot of the entry-level product which you can get from stores set out by Konami have historically not been necessarily the most competitively viable stuff to go out on the market, and what ends up happening is people will buy these decks or buy these structure decks and then go out try to play with them, and as long as they're not playing with someone who is maybe like a close cousin in their house or at school or something, anything more competitive than that, they're gonna get destroyed and crushed quite easily, because those decks are just not really up to par. That was really the case up to this year. Konami did a really great job of releasing entry-level product this year, including Duel Devastator, Duel Power with reprints, the Gold Sarcophagus tins, and also 2 of the 3 structure decks they released this year were very, very good from a competitive standpoint. And this one was the Soul Burner structure deck. The Soul Burner structure deck, not only did it come with the Salamangreat archetype, but it also came with copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring inside. And that was a really, really cool move by Konami, because Ash Blossom is by far the best hand trap in the game, period. And it actually works well, or has some synergy with the cards in this deck, which was quite nice. So if you were someone who was trying to get into the game, we could just go and say, listen, go buy 3 boxes of Soul Burner, and then you need to get your hands on 3 copies of Sunlight Wolf, and you had yourself a competitively viable deck that you could effectively use and do okay-ish in a tournament. You still could do with a couple of cards here or there to beef it up a bit, but realistically the deck was good out of the box. Sadly, later on in the year, we did see some changes from ban lists that affected the quality of this product. Now Gazelle and Circle are restricted to 1 copy each, which then in turn made Cyanic Mining more of a staple card in this deck. And Cyanic Mining was a secret rare card from, I want to say, Dark Neostorm. It was from Dark Neostorm, which made the cost of this deck go up quite a bit, because a secret rare card was going for about £20 each, if not even more than that, and so it raised the value of this deck quite a bit. But still, if you can almost find a way to live without the Cyanic Mining, it's still a very, very good way to get into the game with having a very good deck. And the deck is very good. Even despite being a budget deck, it is very, very consistent. It has almost answers for every situation. It can remove spells and traps, it can reduce monsters' attacks, it can get rid of cards on the field by bouncing. It's overall just an incredible package, and right now I think it's the 2nd best deck in the game, but in terms of the whole of 2019, it definitely is worth hitting for number 3 on this list. Also got to point out that it won the World Championship format of 2019, which is credit to how strong this deck was. It's just incredibly balanced. If you want a balanced deck which is almost good in every situation, Salamangreat is a great way to go for, and definitely deserving of number 3 on this list. Okay, so number 2 on this list, I'm going to give it to Orcust. Orcust has definitely been the breakout deck of the year. Very, very much close to Salamangreat in that regards, but Orcust has had such a great impact, and it keeps on evolving throughout this year, and I think it will continue to do so through 2020. Orcust, when it first came out in January 2019 in Savage Strike, really was met with an underwhelming response. They were just kind of common and rare cards which nobody really kind of cared about. I remember keeping an engine or a set of the cards to myself, but then I was very quick to get rid of it. I remember selling a whole Orcust deck for 10 quid back in January, and man, do I regret doing that, because it's worth so much more now. The deck really was kind of seen as being underwhelming until guys like Thomas Rose took it to YCS Dusseldorf with variants such as Phantom Knight Orcust, using cards like Rusty Bardiche and Rank Up Magic to kind of make really, really good for going first or going second board plays. And the deck really started to get a lot of popularity since then. When Rusty Bardiche and Rank Up Magic hit the ban list, they then just got release of their best boss monster, Dingirsu. And Dingirsu is easily the best boss monster of 2019. It just does everything you want a boss monster to do. It has respectable attack and defense stats, it protects your board from destruction, it recovers your resources from the banish pile, and it has non-targeting, non-destructive removal, all wrapped up into one single card. It is phenomenal, and it is what makes Orcust so good. They just have, with Dingirsu, they just have an answer for almost every situation that they can just deal with, because it's just really that good. I feel that Salamangreat and Orcust both do very, very similar jobs. They both use Graveyard as a brilliant resource, and they both are decks which have an amazing link to, which functions as the centerpiece of their engine. And both decks can link climb into bigger and better boss monsters through excellent use of their resources. But I think it's because of Dingirsu that I will lean towards Orcust just being a slightly the better deck than Salamangreat, because Orcust are just There's just such a smaller engine, and it can be mixed with other variants to kind of get different results. We've seen things like Lunar Light Orcus happen up earlier this year, and I think we'll continue to see different variants of Orcus in the future. Not to mention, Orcus are also Dark Monsters, which give them access to 25 years of Konami's favourite art attribute, including things like Armageddon Night and Allure of Darkness, and so on and so forth. So number 2 I'm going to give to Orcus. Very, very powerful deck, and I think it will continue to be into the future. So number 1 on this list, I have to give it to Sky Strikers. Sky Strikers throughout most of 2019 has remained to be the deck that people have to beat whenever you're going to any tournament or event. It is just so good at doing what it does. It's so incredibly consistent. It has one of the best starters in the game, being Sky Striker Engage, and whilst many people would agree that it's currently not the threat it once was, no deck has been more dominant than Striker in this year at high level tournaments. It has won several YCSs this year. It has topped almost every single YCS, and now we're starting to see people even mix the engine in with other decks such as Orcus or Thunder Dragon, because the Sky Striker Engage engine is just that good. It's a simple spell card that turns your whole deck into a toolbox and lets you fetch whatever you need for the situation, whether it's being a negation or a snatch steals like effect, or whether you want to get rid of spells and traps, or get something out of your opponent's grave. It's just really just lets you do so many things for such a little amount of investment, and yeah, it's just a really amazing deck. I have to say the best deck of that 2019 was Sky Strikers, even though I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case going forward, but for 2019, easily Strikers number 1. So guys, thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you agree with me or disagree, do let me know down in the comments down below. I will be also releasing some deck profiles over the next couple of days of what I think are some of the best decks to try and use for January 2020, and hopefully you guys will check those out. And thank you as always for tuning in. Have a lovely 2020 celebration. Take care, and I'll see you soon.